Good morning, everybody. Wow, what a crowd, what a crowd. Mr. Vice President, we're so happy to have you here this morning. This is, obviously, the highlight of our Munich Security Conference meeting in Washington, D.C.
I hope not. But
it is the highlight. It's really a great honor to welcome you here this morning. Actually, for those of you who have not been regular participants in Munich, this is the third time already that the Vice President is participating in a Munich Security Conference event. When you came to Munich last February, your speech kicked off a pretty controversial debate about fundamental values, unlike anything we have ever had at the Munich Security Conference. And actually, we published a brochure, a copy of which you'll have on the way out, about the speech and the reactions to it from around the world. This intense debate about how fundamental values, how the freedom of speech, the rule of law should be interpreted and applied continues to this day. But when we prepared for this meeting with your team yesterday, we agreed, and they agreed, that today we should try to focus on current challenges of foreign policy, which confront us together. So thank you again for making yourself available. We don't have a great deal of time, so I'll not come up with a long introduction, and I just want to get us started. The first time you came to Munich, you were still a senator from Ohio. What I associate with Ohio is the Dayton Agreement, 30 years ago in 1995. I was at that time actually the German negotiator. So I actually lived in Dayton, Ohio for one entire month. So and why is this important? Because it was through U.S. intervention, that peace was brought about in Europe, in the Balkans at that time. So if I may, let me ask my first question about the U.S. and Europe. A distinguished former U.S. diplomat, Richard Holbrooke, wrote almost exactly 30 years ago in a Foreign Affairs article that the United States is and should remain a European power. Today, 30 years ago, my question is, do you think that the United States should continue to see itself as a European power? In Munich, remember, you actually said, and I quote, "We are still on the same team." Are we, and what does that mean for the U.S. presence in Europe and relationship with Europe? First question.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, and I'm sorry my microphone apparently is broken, but we have another one, so that's good. So everybody can hear me now, right? Everybody can hear me? Great, good. So first of all, thrilled to be here and thrilled to have this conversation. I've been looking forward to it. And yeah, I do still very much think that the United States and Europe are on the same team. And I think that this is, sometimes I've been criticized as a hyper-realist, right? I think of foreign policy purely in terms of transactional values. What does the America get out of it? What do the rest of the world get out of it? And try to focus so purely on the transactional value of it that we ignore sometimes the humanitarian or the moral side of it. And I think at least with Europe, that's actually not a full encapsulation of my views, because I think that European civilization and American civilization, European culture and American culture are very much linked. And they're always going to be linked. And I think it's completely ridiculous to think that you're ever going to be able to drive a firm wedge between the United States and Europe. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to have disagreements. And of course, you brought up the speech earlier. It doesn't mean that Europeans won't criticize the United States or the United States won't criticize Europe. But I do think fundamentally we have to be, and we are, on the same civilizational team. And I think, obviously, there's a big question about what that means in the 21st century. I think, obviously, the president and I believe that it means a little bit more European burden sharing on the defense side. I think that it means that all of us, frankly, on both sides of the Atlantic have gotten a little bit too comfortable with the security posture of the last 20 years, and that, frankly, that security posture is not adequate to meet the challenges of the next 20 years. So there are a lot of ways in which this alliance will evolve and change, in the same way that the alliance evolved and changed from 1945 to 1975 and from 1975 to 2005. I do think that we're in one of these phases where we're going to have to rethink a lot of big questions, but I do think that we should rethink those big questions together. That is a fundamental belief of both me and the President. And you mentioned this is my third time speaking with the Munich Security Conference group. Obviously, the first couple of times were in Munich, and I always remember very fondly, of course, that the very first time it was as a United States Senator representing Ohio, and I'm glad you got to spend a month in Dayton. I love Dayton. It's kind of the closest big city, if you can call it a big city, to where I grew up. But on that first panel, I was on that panel, and also David Lammy, who at the time was a lowly member in opposition, and of course now is the great Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, and he and I have become good friends. So I still think that this European alliance is very important, but I think that for it to be important and for us to be real friends with each other, and I think that we are very much real friends, we've got to talk about the big questions, and I know that's an important part of what this entire group does, so I'm glad to be here.